Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Booz. I'm a Postgres advocate with Redgate Software, and this is day 2 of the Advent of Code. As I mentioned in video 1, I've recently switched jobs, and I saw folks in my PostgreSQL community, not PostgreSQL, I mean the Postgres community, talking only about SQL. It is called PostgreSQL, not PostgreSQL. Anyway, whole different discussion. And so about doing Advent of Code using only SQL or Postgres included functions without getting into PLPG SQL, I thought it sounded like a fun challenge, and so I'm a little bit late to the game. I'm slowly catching up. Hopefully by the end of this next day or two, I'll be up to speed to where the Advent of Code is at. I'm not trying to get on a leaderboard. I'm just simply trying to take the input and see if I can figure this out in SQL. And so I thought I'd post these videos, maybe 10 minutes or less, hopefully around that, 10, 15 minutes, just describing each solution, what I chose. And as I said yesterday, there are a few folks in my community that I showed that, if I get stuck, I might go look at their solution, because they're teachers, that really know Postgres well, and I've always learned from them. So, I'll give it my best shot. And then if I really get stuck, maybe I'll see if I need a little hint. And again, my purpose is just to learn. So I'm hoping that you will get to learn something too, if this is interesting for you to learn how to do some of this data manipulation in SQL. So let's hop over to day 2. Day 2 was a rock, paper, scissors game. The input that was given looked like this. So it's essentially 2 columns of data, letters A, B, or C in the first column, and then letters X, Y, or Z in the second column. And with Advent of Code, you're given 1 data input and then 2 questions dealing with manipulating the data in some way. So in this case, question 1 said that there's this assumption that the first column is the guess of your opponent in rock, paper, scissors. So A is rock, B is paper, C is scissors. And the second column is your guess. X is rock, Y is paper, and Z is scissors. And so game 1 is saying, hey, you got this list, an elf came up to you and said, hey, I think this is how the game's going to go, or that's what you think they're saying. And so the game basically was for each guess that you make, you get a point for guessing rock, 2 points for guessing paper, and 3 points for guessing scissors. And then if you win that game, you get 6 points. If you tie the game, you get 3 points. If you lose the game, you get nothing. So essentially it was, for round 1, for the first guess, go through every single repetition of rock, paper, scissors. If you won the game, you get 6 points. If you tied, you get 3 points. If you didn't, you get 0. And add to that the guess that you made. So let's say you won the game and you guessed rock. That would be 6 plus 1 is 7. So you'd get 7 points for that round. So you basically go through this entire game. What is the total points? And so that is what we were trying to accomplish for this. So that's essentially what all this says for day 2, describing what you're doing. So, all right, so I'm in dbeaver for day 2, and I needed to take that text file. The way I approached it was I saw that as 2 separate columns. Not everybody, again, like I said, I've looked at other solutions after the fact. Not everyone did. Honestly, probably would have been easier not to do it that way. Some people just imported each line as a string, and then you'll see the comparisons I made. Quite honestly, just would have been less typing. Oh well, it is what it is. So I created this table that has 3 columns. Again, as I said, this is how I will probably approach most days. I'll create a table. I will create an ID, an identity column, because I just don't know when the order of the rows that come in might be useful for that puzzle. So that's just what I do. And then I saw it as the opponent's guess and my guess. So the opponent's play and then my play. So that's why I called it OPP and play. I copied that data in with pSQL. Again, I talked about that yesterday. We ended up with 2,500 guesses. So I will come down here, switch this to text, make that a little bit bigger. Oops, well, I made that bigger, didn't I? There we go, 2,500 rows, and this is what the data look like. All right, now I think this is just an artifact. That is not what's in that table. I see a little pipe there. I think it's just an artifact, we'll ignore that. So honestly, this one's pretty short for me. I think this is pretty straightforward. Really, again, using that CTE, we talked about what CTE were yesterday, common table expression. I just said, hey, I could do the math mentally. my original input, I was going to create a table out of this or try and come up with some, maybe bitwise operation in some way. I just for like 2 minutes thought about it. And honestly, this is just very straightforward for me. So I created a simple table and I'll show you what the table looks like first. So this is what the table looks like. It's a very simple table, a total of 9 rows. So when the opponent guesses A, I can guess one of these 3 things. And if I win, which is what we were thinking is going to happen, this is or whatever the outcome of that is, this is the points I would get. So that's my intermediate table. So I created that. And then I simply joined that to the real table. Now in Postgres, if you use just the using, oops, let me do that again. If you use just the using, that will remove duplicate columns. So let me show it to you without. So if I say, let me leave that there. If I say select star from, tell you what, let me do this. That'll be a whole lot easier. I'll just do this, select star, right? So I do that, and you'll notice because I'm using the using join, I only get one column for opponent and my play. Again, those are the columns I chose. If I did a traditional join, which I could have done, right? So instead, if I say inner join on gm.opp equals d.opp and d.play equals, I'm doing this backwards, doesn't really matter, .play, you'll notice that I end up with a duplicate column there. Again, it doesn't matter in this case because I only care about the points row. It's just it's a nicety in Postgres and a couple other databases that use it, and that's what it does. So when I did a sum on points, I get a total of 12,679, and you'll see that that was the correct answer for day 2, star 1. All right. So now star 2 says, actually, it turns out that the elf comes back. He got interrupted explaining what this paper meant, comes back later and says, hey, that second column means that should be the outcome of the game. So your opponent guesses A. If you are going to win the game against A, it has an X. I think X means, no, so X means you lose, Y means you draw, and Z means you win. So then you have to decide if they play rock and it's an X, what is that? What's the point total? What would I have to play to create a loss with a rock? So in that case, I'd have to select scissors. So I'd get 3 points for scissors, 0 because I lost the game, and so my total would be 0. So I simply just redid that internal table. In this case, notice I kind of kept the rows together. So I said, hey, if they play rock, here's my 3 guesses. If they play paper, there's my 3 guesses. So for the first puzzle, I did it that way. For the second puzzle, I just mentally said, hey, for each of their 3 guess types, rock, paper, scissors, if I have to lose, so all the X, what would my point totals be? And then the second row, the next 3 is, if I had to draw, and then finally if I had to win. And so do the exact same. I didn't have to change anything else. I had to run that, and I get 14,470, and that was the answer for star 2 on day 2. So straightforward way. I think there, again, I could have maybe not split the rows apart. That might have made this a little bit easier. I think one of the gentlemen I was following actually did like a 4-part values table. And it was basically, if it's this guess and you were to play this, it would be a loss. And so he could accomplish both queries from the same table, right? So it's taking this, instead it would be, I think one was, if it's this, it's a loss. So there's a couple ways you can think about it. This was straightforward, allowed me to solve the puzzle, and got to show you values and got to show you the using statement. So hopefully that's helpful. Take care. We'll see you on day 3.